Hello everyone, it's Ange de Lumière for High Vibe Monday. I'm a spiritual lawyer and an intuitive business strategist, and once a month I like to invite incredible ladies to join my High Vibe Monday live streaming, or whatever you call it, to interview them. And today I have the privilege of inviting over Emma Turton, who's a medical intuitive. I've known Emma for well over a year in the internet sphere, and she fascinates me because I know that she has a scientific background, and I'm adding her. She's turned intuitive as well. So I really like to interview people who are a bit different, who combine what I call logic with magic. So I'm bringing Emma on right now, and this recording will also go on YouTube and on my podcast when I decide to. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Ange. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. There's a tiny bit of a lag. I don't know if you have a computer in the background that is that the sound is on, because I was hearing a little bit of no, I don't hear myself echoing anymore. That's fine.
Okay, hang on. I'll do is I'll shut it down just in case. So it'll just shut down in the background. I've had to rest my phone on the computer so I can see you. So
first of all, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I feel really honored.
Oh, I'm absolutely honored that you asked. It's so exciting that we get to do this. And as I said, I've never done a live podcast interview before. So that's really exciting. I've never done Facebook Live interviewee type thing. It's very exciting to jump in with you here. So thank you.
Oh, good. Yes, I think we're going to have so much fun. So would you like to introduce yourself just a little bit? And I will tell you, after you introduce yourself, what really drew me to you, why I'm so excited about you generally, every time I see you on the live or something.
I love that you join me live when I go live. It's so nice to know that you're watching from the other side of the planet. So I'm a medical intuitive. My background is very much from the very conventional health background. So I started my career as a physiotherapist with a science degree, and I became a nutritionist and realized that there was so much more going on with health when I went through my own physical journey. I went through my own quite life-changing journey around my own health, and throughout that process I realized that a large chunk of my own journey was that I was uncovering that I had these abilities, this intuitive connection and the ability to tune into others, which I'd never really heard of a medical intuitive until only a few years ago. So I didn't realize that's what I was doing. So it was quite a journey to get to where I am now. But I see clients from all over the world, and I work online in this type of format with video conferencing, and I am able to access another person's subtle anatomy, so energetic anatomy, but also physical anatomy from afar, and help guide them towards finding solutions. So why that may have shown up for them, perhaps uncovering limiting beliefs and fears, perhaps uncovering nutritional imbalances or other things that are going on, because our body is always communicating with us, and I very much interpret that communication as it comes through me when I receive the information. So it's a very powerful tool when we learn to connect in with that. And that's what I do. I'm also teaching other people how to do that for themselves, so that they can tune into their own bodies and start to.
That's exactly what gets me really excited about you, because if I remember right, the first conversation we had was me getting excited about what you do, because I have read so many, and I do have dictionaries that tell you which part of the body, what kind of illness means what. And for me, I compared it to those dream dictionaries where, okay, it's a starting point, but actually we each have our own symbology. We each have our own way to see the world. So even though, and I'm going to get onto my toe later in the interview, I don't want to do that too early, but even though someone's a broken toe might mean one thing to one person, it could mean something completely different to another person.
Yes.
And that's what gets me excited about you and your book and your work, because we need more people to get us back to us. to give the power back to us instead of someone telling us what this means. So I want to go back just a little bit to what you were saying at the beginning. First of all, I wanted to ask you, what is your dominant Clair? Because I also want to have a conversation about Clairs and explain to our viewers who might know nothing about it, what Clairs are and what, the range of it. So can you tell me what your dominant Clair?
So my dominant Clair is clairsentience. So what that means is that I feel my intuitive hits in my physical body. So I feel physically, I have a physical response and feel in my body what's going on. Not only in my life, I know physically when to do things and what to do, but I also interpret the information I receive from others through my own physical body. So I feel what's going on perhaps in your body or in a client's body as we're having a session. And that doesn't leave a lag for me. I just interpret that information. I'm also clairvoyant, and will interpret that using the images that come through, because feelings are actually really hard to put into words. So it helps to have the clairvoyance come in. So when you talk about the dominant Clair, do you want me to fill that bit in? In case your viewers haven't heard of Clairs?
We can make it a conversation, or we can. I was going to say there's. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's 5 main ways that we can receive intuition. What the most well-known is clairvoyance, when you see images, but I want to explain to our listeners that actually sometimes it's more of an idea than a real vision. And this is something I like to explain in hypnotherapy as well, because when you go through guided meditation, sometimes people are held back because they can't see, or they think they cannot see.
Yes.
But what I like to explain is that if you were put in front of 10 different doors, you would know which one's yours, even if you couldn't, you would know right away. You don't need to be able to project it in your mind. So it's having an idea of the concept. And very often for me, I will get an idea and I know it's clairvoyance, even though I can't actually see it that clearly. So I want to clarify that because for people who might be feeling things but have no training, have no idea what all these clairs are, get completely confused about what we're talking about.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's different for everybody. That's something that I've certainly learned through working with my clients, is that some people do see physical things appear in front of them in very Hollywood style. Things actually do. Someone sits down on the couch and they have a conversation, and it's not something other people can see. So some people do see things that way, and that's not how I see things. I will sometimes have flashes of images and memories and things that pop up. But when I see, it's like seeing with inner sight. It's different. And it's the same with the feeling. It took a long time for me to really separate what was mine and what wasn't, because I thought it was all mine when I first was realizing what was going on. I suddenly went, oh, some of this isn't mine. I had to go on quite a journey to discover what was mine and what wasn't in terms of the feelings. And I still every now and then will go, oh my goodness, I'm feeling this right now. Oh no, I'm not. That's somebody else over there. That's okay. It's not mine. Every now and then I still go, oh. So it's very different for different people. And those different Clairs are just, like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance, clear knowing, or clear hearing. Those are just the ways we receive our information. And there's many, many more, I believe, like taste, and there's lots of different ones. Smell.
We had a conversation in Enrique Jane's group where it was with Midley, sorry. And I explained I once walked towards my front door and I smelled my grandmother's perfume so clearly. There was no doubt it was her. And occasionally, and I did tell my grandfather off, I told him off because he would bring in cigar smoke, and that makes me totally nauseous. So these things you can also stop them if you're not happy with them.
Yes, we always have a choice.
I think it's important for people to hear that. If it bothers them, there's other ways that we can get information, or we can just shut it down. Personally, I don't think that's such a good decision. But if you are overwhelmed in your life at one point and you want to shut it down, all you need to say is that's it, So the second question I had for you is, when did you become aware that you were able to read people's energies? Is it something that's always been with you, or is it something that came when you started working with people? I'm just curious.
Well, it's interesting because it's a really good question. And when I think about it, I really wasn't sure that I was reading other people's energies until only a few years ago. was maybe 5-6 years ago, I realized that I was interpreting more information than other people normally do. And I wasn't really sure where it was coming from or how I was achieving this sort of information, but I was working still very much in conventional health in my own business. But I was able to expand in areas I knew nothing about with my clients, and really couldn't explain why I knew about their daughter or the issues with their ex-husband, or, you know, I was able to give them all this information, and I felt like I was having to guard myself, and I didn't really have permission to share, because I couldn't really explain why I knew what I knew, or but I found that I couldn't hold that back anymore, because it was having a physical cost on my body. So that's where I started to really deepen into what it meant to be a medical intuitive, and where the information was coming from, how to access it more intentionally, so that people could really benefit from the information coming through, because it's all sitting there waiting to be read. It just needs to, and we can learn to read that ourselves. We don't need somebody else to do that for us, but we've just not been taught. It's just not something that we've been taught to do. From childhood, we're dissociated from our body, we're dissociated from our soul. So it's something that we have to learn to be able to be connected on that deep level, where we can use it practically in our own lives. So, and I realized in retrospect, as the second part of your question, that yes, I have been reading other people's energy for probably as long as I can remember, but I didn't know that's what it was. I thought that I wasn't that great at parties. I thought that I really didn't enjoy large gatherings or shopping centres. I thought that, you know, when I worked at hospitals, that I must have just needed to try harder, because everyone else seemed to be able to cope in hospitals with all of the huge amounts of energy moving around in a hospital. I mean, it's all, you know, crying family and terrified wives and lost children and people in pain and disease, and, you know, and I worked in hospitals for many years, both public and private hospitals, both in Australia, in the UK. I did, you know, all that sort of work, and I enjoyed that work. It was very rewarding, and I enjoyed working with clients at that level, the very conventional level. But it took a very physical toll on me, and at that time I didn't realise why, and I didn't really understand that what I had was more of a superpower than a sensitivity. And that was really a coming of age, I guess, for me, the coming out of the spiritual closet and going, oh, okay, this could be used for good, not just evil. Don't like the word evil, but you know what I mean. It doesn't need to have that.
Well,
I don't need to be suffering.
I'm loving this conversation, because my grandmother was a natural clairvoyant, except she had no training and no one to talk to. Oh. And so she considered it a curse. Now, this is where we can turn a curse into a superpower. And that's why I'm so passionate. I teach my children about intuition. I tell them to trust their gut. I tell them, we talk, you know, I'm homeschooling as well. So this is part of my curriculum. And I'm really, really passionate about that, because so many people are just left out, stranded, not knowing, wondering, even experiencing depression, when really it might not even be their stuff. So that's, and just to add on to what you were saying, not that I want to take the, you know, the mic for too long, but I've been channeling for since I was a child, but I didn't know I was. And I realized when I trained in mediumship and channeling, that I remember a specific instance when I was 8 years old, where someone came to me and who were really distressed. I can't remember if it was an adult or, you know, someone, I think it was someone a little bit older than me, but not an adult. And the words that came out of my mouth, I knew as I was saying them, I am not wise enough to say this. I'm only 8 years old. And I think it's really important for people to learn about these things like you did, like I did, so we don't feel like something weird or maybe even something worrying is happening to us. Because these are really gifts from God, even though sadly most religions don't recognize this. These are superpowers. These are things that we should bring in for good. Yeah,
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And we are taught from children that, you know, that these things are either in our head, in our imagination, or that, you know, that it's something that needs to be suppressed, or that it's not acceptable to say these things in certain groups, or you can't say that to your relative you know, who are you to say those things? So we're taught that from a very early age, and we suppress that. But it's not a gift what I do with my clients. It's something everyone has the ability to do. It's just a muscle I've worked and trained. That's all it is. And we all have this intuitive connection. We all have this ability, which I love.
That's true. That's true. I'm so glad you made that point, because the intuition is there for everyone in different shades and different colors, but it is there, and it is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more you flex it, the stronger it gets, definitely. So it's more difference of the people who embrace it and people who don't.
Yes.
But for me, I always think that if you marry logic to magic, then you're unstoppable. Whereas if you just go for one without the other, then that you're missing on something, definitely.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you manage this gift so that you don't get overwhelmed?
So I'm not that person in the corner of the party that's curled in a ball and not able to socialize. Yeah, because that's what I used to be. So very good question. And it's taken me a while to be able to get to the point where I am able to, you know, be in normal life and be highly connected to my intuitive abilities. So I realized that there are boundaries, that we can manage those boundaries, that we are actually in control of where we allow information to come in and where we allow information to go out. So for instance, if I'm at a birthday party, happened to me earlier this year, like towards the beginning of this year, I was having heart issues at the party, and I knew they weren't mine. So I was feeling physically like I was having the beginning of a heart attack, and I knew it wasn't mine. So, and I, you know, breath taken away, I had all of the symptoms, got sweaty, it was pain, and I knew that someone at the party, but because there were so many people there, I didn't know who it was. And I just took that moment and said, not now, maybe at a time later, when it's an appropriate time, when I might be able to share it with this person, when their time comes up, then it can come back. But right now is not that time. And it was gone in an instant. And I realized at some point earlier than that, but that was a really good example of how we do always have that choice. And I didn't know that as an empath my whole life and very sensitive. I didn't know that I had a choice. So I can go to a supermarket now and it's fine. I have no issues. But a large part of that is that I practice a really quite a devoted daily practice. So I have a real integrated into my life, so not difficult to do. I'm not a person who sits in meditation on a special cushion in my meditation room for, you know, hours on end. I don't do that. I meditate integrated into many, many aspects of my day. It's the first thing I do in the morning. It's the last thing I do every night. And I do that in bed because it's comfortable and I might fall asleep. And so I meditate while I'm doing cooking. I meditate while I'm doing other things. I practice presence at regular intervals. I have a whole pile of different daily practices which help me to manage having a normal life. I mean, I have 3 kids and you know, a partner who works away a lot of the time, and you know, I have a normal life. I have got to still show up for the school drop off and pick up and, you know, do normal stuff. But then in my work, I have that very, very deep, powerful connection, which I ritually invite in. I intentionally access it then and allow it to come in and invite it in all its glory so that it can be of service to somebody else. And so that's how I usually maintain that in terms of having those boundaries and knowing where my energy is going, drawing my energy back from places where it's allowed to flow, where I'm allowing it to leak, because that's often we always are allowing our energy to go places, whether that's obsessing over, you know, something we've seen on the news, or whether that's worrying about our children, or whether that's thinking about, you know, the mother-in-law's birthday in a couple of weeks and thinking about all the things we need to do for that and allowing all our energy to get poured into that, or something that somebody said to us yesterday, or any of those things. That's where we're letting our energy flow. And when we do that, we start to get disconnected to our own body. We start to create disease in our body. We get tired, we get irritable, our relationships suffer, everything starts to suffer, and we can hurt ourselves. And those injuries will always be related to those things that we've been allowing our energy to drain to. So I've become very aware of that for myself. But I also maintain an incredibly clean way of eating most of the time. My friends will probably be snickering at that because they do see me eating things every now and then that they go, that's not what on your Facebook page. So I do, like, you know, I don't eat completely clean all the time, but I know what serves my body and I avoid the things that I know don't serve it at all. So, and that keeps my energy very high vibe and clear and allows me to do the work that I do with a lot more ease. But that's very specific to each of us. I'm not a diet dog person, and we each have to find our own way of eating and our own way of living and what our body can tolerate. So
absolutely
personal. It's one of the things I love
what
about
you've shared. I love what you've shared. And one of the practices I teach my clients is to bring their energy back. Bring their energy back 3 times, every time. When you feel that you feel either lost or you feel tired or suddenly your mood swings. You know, you're very happy, then you talk to one person and your mood drops dramatically. And that person might be smiling and saying, hello, how are you? And then your mood drops and you're like, what's going on? This has taken me a long time. I want to share actually an anecdote that I don't think I've ever shared before. It was after I trained in Reiki 1. Because I think you trained in Reiki as well. I'm a Reiki master. I don't teach Reiki anymore, but I really love this modality. After I trained in Reiki 1, I was driving on the road next to where I live towards somewhere. And suddenly I went from having this beautiful mood to being awful. Like I wanted to bite someone's head off, literally, in 2 seconds. I looked around, there was no cars. There was nothing. And I was like, what is going on? Then 5 minutes later, I come to a traffic light, I stop, and this car comes from behind. It must have been at least 500 yards behind me because I didn't see it when I checked my mirrors. Went straight next to me, and like the lady literally opened her window and started insulting me for stopping at the traffic light. It was just so extreme. And I thought, I can actually sense people from 500 yards behind me, and I had no awareness of this. And it was just so vile and so violent and so unwarranted. And then she drove past it as soon as the traffic light changed. And I was just sat in my car and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is really amazing. And I sent her blessing and love and light, whatever you do when people are like that. But this definitely happened.
Well done for sending her blessings and love and light. Not many people would necessarily react that way to somebody who pulls over and starts shouting at them. So I honour your courage there.
Well, at first I was really taken aback. I was like, oh my God, but I did feel I know pity is not a nice feeling, and I wasn't feeling pity for her, but I thought, oh my God, what kind of state must she be in to be in such a, aggravation that if someone stops at the traffic light, she gets in that state. So that was my first impulse was to send her some whatever Reiki I had just trained in. You know, when you're just trained in Reiki, you want to send Reiki to everyone anyway. So, all right, let's move on to the next session. Not session. How do you cope with people's expectations when they come to you and they want you to heal them?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I went through a whole spate where everybody kept asking me, can you heal me in one session? Or can you guarantee me that I will be healed after our one session? And it's actually to the point it's now in my FAQ. Can you heal me in one session is in there, and I answer it in there as well. And it's a very interesting thing because I don't believe that I'm a healer. Yes, some people may experience healing as a part of whatever they may do after sessions with me or during that session, but I'm not a healer. I am simply there to show them who they are and allow them to access their own healer, because we are our own healers. Nobody can heal us. We may get benefits from going to various practitioners over the years. We may have experiences where we have that feeling of feeling better, or that something has shifted after we've been to see somebody, but it's us that was ready to make that shift. It was us that once we were shown that door, we opened it and walked through willingly. And that means we're the ones that are doing the healing for ourselves, and all we need to do is actually see that door, be willing to see it, be willing to have it open for us, and be willing to walk through it. And so I don't see myself as a healer. And one of the things I do say is that anyone who guarantees a person that they will be healed in one session, you should not give your money to that person, because, well, one, that's illegal, but also, two, it's not an ethical way to practice. There are no guarantees in health. There are no guarantees in medicine. No one, not even a doctor or a surgeon or a very highly qualified specialist, can guarantee the outcome for you from anything they do, because life isn't like that. It doesn't work that way. But what we can do is really be ready to make those changes ourselves. And when we are ready to actually recognize that we've got the opportunity to shift and heal and be open to taking ourselves into that space of healing, then we have the ability to shift everything. We have the ability to radically change our health. And it can be, yes, it can be in one session. I had one lady who had a tumor in her brain, and after one session, she contacted me. She'd only had that first initial session with me, but she was so ready to release it. And after that one session, she contacted me a week later and said the tumor was gone. But it wasn't me who healed her tumor. She was ready. She was ready to shift and let it go. It was just perfectly, divinely timed for her that she needed to go through what she went through. And then from that point on, she changed a lot of things. But she was, she didn't need that tumor anymore. So there's no guarantees around that. It's always how we approach it from our own perspective. And many of us actually need to have a health crisis. Many of us are in a state in our life in which we actually are requiring that level of shift to happen throughout our lives. And cancer is one of those things that requires a massive change. It requires a rebuilding of our life on every level. That's what it is. It's an invitation to rebuild our life on every single aspect, every single level. And if we are open to see it as that opportunity or that invitation, then we can change everything. And that can be the way we access our healing. But it depends how open we are to seeing it that way.
Absolutely. And I agree with you with the I actually think that healers are people who give the power back to the people, that actually just show the way and see the person as whole. And that's what a healer should do. They're not here to fix anyone. There's nothing to fix. I'm also listening at the moment to the audio of You Are the Placebo, which I had mentioned. I didn't plan to mention during this interview, but I think it really, if people want to explore this further, I think that would be a great book to start reading or listening to. And it reminded me of all the stuff that I learned through my clinical hypnotherapy training and everything else, is that we are, our thoughts have such an immense impact on our bodies.
Yes.
There was studies made by, and in this book, you probably heard about it, Molecules of Emotion by Candice, I can't remember her surname. That is such a beautiful book written by a biologist who realized that actually our cells are impacted by our emotions tremendously. So if we manage to change our thoughts and our feelings, and that's something we're much more in control than we think we are. I've heard so many times people say, but this is how I feel, and this is how I think, and this is how things are. I said, okay, that's fine. Then you continue creating the reality that you're in. If you want some change, you have to take responsibility for something, and that doesn't mean feeling guilty about it. I need to say this right away. But we have much more power than we think we have. And for me, it's taking the power back from the doctor back to me, so that I'm an active participant. And I remember one of the first books that inspired me on this journey. I actually, and I don't think I've mentioned this either, I nearly died 3 times in the year 2000, before I moved to the UK, on 3 instances of acute crisis. And this is what launched me on my path, because I was like, if I continue this way, I'll be dead in 6 months. I have 2 young children. I have to do something about this. I want to live long and be there to raise them and have a happy life. So the book, one of the book that was a turning point for me was the Bernie Siegel's book, Love, Miracles and Medicine, which, I don't know which way order it is in the title, but it was one of these pioneers books that now are being, the idea has been much more widespread, and it completely changed things, because I think he was a surgeon and an oncologist, and he just observed the difference of how people reacted to even medical interventions, and how their mindset had such a huge impact on the outcome of. But then I also want to mention here that there's also an aspect of what the soul wants, and if it's their time to go, then nothing will change the course of what's supposed to happen. And this is what happened with my dad, who died of a brain tumor in 2014. I knew that he created this tumor as his way out. And I actually thought, and this might shock some people, I thought it was quite a clever way for him to do that, because towards the end of his life, he wasn't aware enough that he was dying, so he wasn't actually afraid. I know at a soul level, he knew everything that was happening, but it was, I mean, everybody manages their deaths the way they want. And I've been in touch with my dad ever since, so I know what his feelings are about it. But I thought, oh my God, this is actually not such a bad way to exit. I'd prefer to do it healthily. My dream is to practice yoga so much that I just pop out. You know, I just sit in meditation and say, time to go, guys. Let's have a party and out. But but for other people, you know, everybody chooses their. I think I believe, and I also respect people who might find that shocking, that we choose the way we die and the way we exit. So
yes, yeah, it takes a very I guess a longer term, a larger view of the soul journey outside of just this one life, to be able to really, I guess, understand that concept. And it can be quite difficult and confronting if we've only really thought about life being in this one lifetime. But yeah, I agree. There is a bigger picture. There is a journey that's happening that is not necessarily visible and not necessarily tangible in this one lifetime. There's a bigger picture, and sometimes death says that bigger picture.
At the same time, I have in mind Dying to Be Me by Anita Morjani, which is an amazing book about how she technically died and came back. And I love these stories of you know, near-death experiences where people come back and tell us about heaven and all these wonderful enlightening experiences that they've had. So I'm going to stop it for now, because I want to still keep to the questions that we I don't usually plan interviews, but now I know why they asked me to write these questions down. So
we need the boundaries.
Yeah, I think so. So my next question is, of course you're going to say yes, but maybe how? Can our bodies communicate with us, and can you give us some examples?
Yes, absolutely.
I remember when we first got in touch with each other, I read about your broken toe, and you were talking about this, and I was like, oh, this is fascinating. So I don't know if you want to talk about that or other things, but
it's a good example, because it's something we think when we've had an accident and we've hurt ourselves, that it's unrelated to a bigger picture or life events. Or I mean, you could, I broke my toe, and I've broken my toes multiple times. Different feet, but still it's the same toe, the little toe. So it's, and you could easily just go, I'm a klutz. Yep, I fall over. I'm really uncoordinated, and just, you know, scratch it off to that. But this one time I didn't. I had got up early one morning and went down to, I was planning on meditating. I was in a bit of a rush. I was in a bit of a, you know, a strange place, and I had got up before everyone else. Thought, great, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go meditate. And I went downstairs. I'd run out of incense upstairs, so I needed to go get incense. I fell down my tiled stairs quite a way. Like, I actually tumbled around the corner and all the way down the whole staircase. It could have been a catastrophic event. It really hurt, but it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I didn't want to wake up the whole household. I managed to do it almost silently, apart from the odd grunt. I'd been wearing bed socks, so I could go, well, I probably shouldn't have been walking up and down in the dark in my socks along tiled stairs that are quite slippery. There's a whole pile of that rational mind thinking that came in. But what I did instead was I laid on the ground at the bottom of the stairs in a heap and went, ow. And then thought, okay, why? Why this? Why now? I could have hit my head. I could have got concussion. I could have hurt my elbow. I could have fractured my wrist. I could have done a whole bunch of other things. I knew my toe was broken. I held my toe. I knew it was black and it was a funny shape. I knew straight away my little toe was broken. And I thought, you know what? I've done this before. This time I want to know why. This time I want to know what this is about. And so I sat with it and I breathed and just sat in presence with the pain and was really actually quite happy about the cold tiles at that point. And I laid on them and just was fully accepted by them. And I asked myself a few guiding questions to get to the bottom of what it might be and why it showed up. And it came to me, I don't remember if it was then or just a little bit after, but it came to me once the pain had subsided. So my meditation ended up pretty much being on the floor at that point. And I allowed the answers to come through when I sat with that, going, why was it not my head? Why was it not my elbow? Why is it my bone? Why have I broken my bone and not just sprained my ankle? Why is it that, right foot, not my left foot? Why is it different? Why is it just my little toe, not my big toe? And actually allowed myself to question all of the different parts of it and sit with it and be really present with what was going on in my body and the pain that I was experiencing. And because our bones are very much about our structure. They're what keep us upright. Our muscles are the strength that hold us there, but without our bones, we'd be a pool of mush on the floor. So our bones are what give us that firm structure in our life, that solid stability to be able to navigate our choices, to make them happen, to stand firm in our power. And so I thought, well, I need to really go into what's going on here. And for me, in that moment, I knew absolutely that I had been creating false structure around my meditation. I'd been making it really hard. The reason I was all agitated was because I'd made sure I got up really early, wrenched myself out of bed, had to meditate in a certain way. I had to do it with incense. Couldn't not meditate without incense, could I? Because it wouldn't count then. So I had this whole epiphany at that moment on the floor, holding my broken toe in my hand, curled up, trying not to make any sounds. Managed to not wake up the family. I was quite proud of myself. Because, as you know, broken bones are incredibly painful. There's nothing quite like that feeling of wanting to vomit that happens when you break a bone.
Yeah, scotchy toes. Oh my God, I don't even know how you went into meditation after that.
Well, it was a very different kind of meditation. It's very pain-centered and breathing into the pain. And I knew straight away what I'd done was created this false structure around needing to have everything look right, needing to have incense to meditate. I didn't need incense. I didn't even need to leave my warm bed in order to be able to meet my daily needs for practice. I didn't need to make it hard, and that's what I was doing. So that false structure I was using as an excuse to not do it. On multiple occasions, I wouldn't even attend to my daily practice, which is so important to me. It's so important because it keeps me sane, it keeps me connected, it keeps me on track, and it keeps me grounded. And so I needed it for so many reasons, and yet I was making it so hard for myself I couldn't achieve it. And that was my lesson, that dawning realization. Yes, I still had a broken toe that I needed to strap up, and I couldn't go to Pilates for a couple of weeks, or yoga, but it was the least painful of all of my broken toes, and yet it was the funniest shape. So I can guarantee that me coming to that realization earlier is what made the difference in the recovery. Within a couple of weeks, I was back at Pilates. I was doing single limb stance. I was able to wear shoes, whereas every other time I've broken my toe, it took months and months of pain for me to stop to get the swelling down, to make it, really able to be lived with again. So when we get that message, it doesn't always make the broken bone magically disappear, but what it does is it stops me needing to break my bone again, because I can get that message now in advance. And I haven't actually broken my toe since then, which is huge. So
nice outcome. Nice outcome. Oh my God, and I can see, this is the way I see things though, is that your toe sacrifice itself to bring you this beautiful message, whereas most people would just swear at their toe and say, God damn it, you did it again, and insult themselves. And that's definitely not the way you should be welcoming your body's messages, even however unpleasant they are.
Yes.
That's my stand on it, and I hope that more and more people will come to this, because so many of us are at war with our bodies. When our bodies don't act the way we want them to, or when they disrupt our lives, we rebel, we go at war, and that's not useful. I don't think it's very useful.
I agree. We fight against ourselves. Yeah, we fight against ourselves.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, so we fight against ourselves. We often are, we get angry when we hurt ourselves. We get upset when we're sick or annoyed when we're sick, and we take medication so that we can soldier on. I mean, it's even in the commercials, soldier on
Yeah.
with cold and flu medication. And, that's absolutely the opposite of what our body is trying to do. Our body is actually communicating with us. Every single symptom is a message. Every single thing that happens in our body, no matter how much we might be able to logically justify it, it's a message, and it's guidance. It's intuitive guidance that's coming through the form of physical symptoms. And so that's a language we have access to. We each have a body, so we all have access to that language, as long as we are able to take that time to sit with it and actually work out what the message is for us, what it is talking about, what it's referring to. And that's a really powerful tool. So it's something that we should be able to sit with, because we each have access to our own body.
And you know what? It's interesting, because how do we understand the messages of our body? And I've been reflecting, and I didn't even before I invited you to do this interview, it's like my body wanted to talk to me and have this conversation, this reflection, because I have this resistance in asking my body. And I was like, why? I don't trust that I'm going to get the message. I don't trust that I'm going to understand it. I want someone else to tell me. And then I dived deeper and I realized it's because I have been taught as a child not to trust my body. I have been taught as a child to suppress my emotions. I have been taught as a child not to trust my body at all. And I'm reflecting here because this has been a thing ongoing on my page with my 100 days to size 12. So I want to lose weight and I want to be slimmer. And I have been battling with that side, not recently, but I was put on a diet at 12 years old. And so this is a signal, this is such a strong signal to say you cannot trust your food cravings. You cannot trust that your body knows what it's doing when it's eating certain things or not. You cannot trust your hunger signals. All this is false. You have to follow this. You have to have so many calories at a certain time a day, this, that, and the other. And it completely messed up, I think, my own connection to my body wisdom. Yes. And the resistance is, can I really trust myself again? Because it's been so long that I've been trusting others to know better about my body than I did. So how do we tune in, Emma? How do we tune in?
That's a great question. And I agree that we are taught from a very early age to be disconnected from our body. But we're taught by people who are also disconnected from their bodies too. So there's
absolutely,
there's nobody's fault. There's no blame in there, that we're trying to do the best we can. And so were those before us who taught us. Yep. And so it's so important to, as a part of that journey as well, to release that I guess in a way the blame, or release that attachment to the story of why you're here in that way, why you got to that point and had to relearn it, because that relearning has been a massive part of why you are the amazing person that you are. That relearning has been absolutely what shaped you, but not just you. It's shaped your gift to others. So it's shaped what you are here to offer to the world. And so that's absolutely invaluable. So that experience was exactly right and perfect for you. And so I would love to be able to teach children from a really early age how to tune into their bodies and to do this. I think, I don't know if I'm much of a school teacher, but I do look at my kids' school teachers and go, how do you do that? I really don't know how you do that with other people's children, but it's hard enough with my own. But I think that's where the magic will be, when we can get to the point that we can make it an integral part, instead of just learning, say, human biology in high school, or mindfulness as a one-off thing, one term, which is great that mindfulness is in there, but it needs to be integrated into every aspect that the kids are doing, not just that one class they did once. So when these things are integrated into the teaching of human biology, for instance, instead of just learning the structure of a cell, but to learn that the cell's communicating, that the cell has a language, that the cell's communicating with biochemistry, that the cell's communicating with the hormones, that the cell is communicating with vibration and with other forms of transmission of communication, but also that our body is communicating in terms of physiological symptoms. So to have that level of understanding from an early age would be an amazing thing. I didn't have it as a child. I didn't know how to communicate with my body, and I got incredibly unwell for a very large part. The first 3 decades of my life, I was a very unwell person. And so it is something that it would be great for most people to, well, for everybody, if we can, to learn. And I think we will get to a tipping point that once a certain number of people learn this process, everyone else will start to just know it. It will just become knowledge within our human race. And from that point on, things will be different in terms of our health and in terms of our management of disease, in terms of the health system across the world. So what we want to do is learn to tune into our body. It's a very big part of it. And a large part of it is clearing the channel to tuning into our own body and listening to what's coming through and beginning to understand how our body really works. So our body isn't constantly attacking us or letting us down or failing us in a variety of ways. Our body is supporting us with everything that comes through, even the bad stuff, even the stuff we think is bad or we label as bad. It's still supporting us in some way.
Yeah.
It's allowing us to deepen into ourselves, to connect with our soul, to perhaps change our course in our life, to course correct to somewhere else, to perhaps choose a different partner, a different job, a different house, move to a different country, to change our conversation with our parents, to change our conversation with our neighbors, with our friends, with our children, to shift something in some way. Our body is giving us many opportunities to stop, pause, and reflect. And those opportunities are invaluable. It's not letting us down and failing us, which is the way our health system approaches it now. And that one shift will change everything. When that gets through to the rest of the world, that one shift will change everything. So I do absolutely think that's where we start. We start with learning how the body is really working, how it's actually supporting us, and what those different aspects that create disease, create health, create wellness, what they are. So our physical body isn't just a standalone physical body that has physical stuff happening to it and physical things that go wrong with it. It's so much more than that. We are so much more than just our physical body. This is just the densest part of our whole beautiful energetic being. And out here in our energy field, and people see these things in different ways. From what I see, our psychology sits out there, our emotions, our choices, our relationships, our feelings, everything that we have, our thoughts, our beliefs, they all sit out here in what other people would call our energy field, however you want to call that, or our subtle anatomy. And they anchor at different points in our physical body. And where they anchor, if these things are sitting there festering, if there's something there that's not been dealt with, that's festering, if we're holding grief around something or resentment or unforgiveness, then that's anchoring into our physical body and we get sick at that point. That's the point at which the illness develops. That's the point at which we get an imbalance in our digestive juices, or we get a fracture in a bone, or we get osteoporosis, or we get an imbalance in our insulin, and our diabetes might start. That's what's actually happening. These things are there first, and then they develop in our physiology. And so what we want to do is start to look at these things not so much as a diagnosis that we're stuck with for life, like a life sentence, but to look at the symptoms, what causes these things, why they're there, why they start, what the disease process is, what part of the body is that affecting, what chakra is that in, what part of my energy body does that relate to, and begin to really create a framework around what that actually might mean. What choices have I made since getting that diagnosis or before getting that diagnosis that may have led to it? What other things in my life have I perhaps been avoiding? Where have I been pushing too hard, or where have I not been authentic or honest with myself? Where have I not been honest in my relationships, or where have I been working in a job and giving my absolute all to something that doesn't light me up, and where I'm not in any state of joy at any point in my life? So it's really starting to look at those things and why they might be showing up in our physiology, and begin to realize that a diagnosis isn't just that simple. It's not just something that you go, oh, well, I've got a name for it now, so it's all good, I'll just take the medicine and it'll go away. Because what happens is it goes deeper into the body when we don't get the message. It's like the canary in the mine shaft, is that if we kill the canary or take the canary away and then think, oh, well, it will be all good, the gas is still there. So the canary's there to tell us when there's a gas leak. Like, say, our tonsils are. when we get a cold, we get tonsillitis. Our tonsils are like the canary telling us that we're, sick. It catches the things we're exposed, our immune system's activated, our tonsils are where it might hit us. And so that's the canary in the cave or in the mine shaft. If we cut the tonsils out or remove the canary from that mine shaft, then we have no way of knowing that our immune system's compromised. We might get sick, but we'll get chest infections or we'll get something else. But our immune system's still compromised. The tonsils were just flaring up to say something's not right with my immune system, with my lymphatic system, because the tonsils are a part of our lymphatic system. And so our lymphatic system is trying to give you a message by giving you tonsillitis at a regular interval. And if we remove that and take that away and don't actually get the message, then it will go deeper, because it's just taking that away, that canary that's giving us the warning. And that applies to so many different parts of our body. So it's something that we can do. We can sit, but a large part of it is learning to be still and learning to sit in presence and mindfulness with yourself, so that you can listen to what's going on in your body and be present and allow yourself to soften around pain. Allow yourself not to judge your symptoms as bad, but to be open to exploring what they have come to offer you.
Thank you for that explanation. And I wish there was like a magic wand and you would just get the message, but it looks like you just have to explore and sit with it. But I think you can probably also ask your body, help me understand.
Yes.
What is this all about?
Yes, and you can, and through that you can ask if you are in contact with your guides, if you're in contact with whatever powers that be, with your highest self. You can absolutely ask for, and it's what Marianne Williamson calls a miracle. It's just simply a change in perception. So we may believe we have a disease and that we're broken, but if we ask for a miracle, if we ask for that change in perception and then allow ourselves with love and compassion to receive that change in perception, we can suddenly have the dawning realization and see it from a completely different perspective and go, oh, I see why that's here now. It's not shown up to hurt me. It's shown up for me. Now I can see how I can find a way through it, because it's shown up for me and it's helping me to see something that I wasn't seeing before. It's stopped me in my tracks and it's allowing me to see what I was blind to.
And also, obviously, people can reach out to you and book sessions with you if they need a little help, which I think would be wonderful.
Yes, and we all do need a little help sometimes.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. We had a question by Tanya about a specific gland in the body, and I said to her, we're not really answering specific questions, but I wanted to mention on this interview that do you still do your Wednesday FB Lives on different topics? Because they're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. From time to time, yes, although I've removed a lot of the rigidity around that now. So I'm going live when I feel called to. And I'm doing it in a variety of formats. So if people do have requests for Facebook Lives on specific topics, they're more than welcome to send me a message, a private message through Facebook, or an email at emma@emmaturton.com.au. And I'm more than happy to see if that's a topic that others would relate to, then I'm more than happy to do a live video on it as well. Or they can, of course, book an appointment with me. But I do have a whole bank of videos on my Facebook page, which I'm very slowly uploading to my YouTube channel. YouTube's just taken a back seat for me. But my Facebook video collection is quite extensive and there's a lot of topics already covered in there. So if you have something specific you wanted to look up, feel free to go and check out my Facebook page, which is Emma Turton Health. And you will see, if you click on videos, that there is a whole pile of topics there and they're all labelled accordingly with different issues, diseases, illnesses. And I've done all kinds of things, from areas of the body to whole systems like muscular system, skeletal system, to things like an appendix and what it means to have your appendix removed, or diabetes or cancer. I've done a variety of different topics there. So you can look those up and get some idea of what it is that I do.
Yeah, and I love these videos. I watched quite a few of them and I really recommend them.
Which is
why I'm interviewing you today as well.
Yay.
So I was going to ask you about my toenail, and it's interesting because I crushed mine and I knew about what your message was, and I haven't really been able to tune into it. And I crushed it like in July when I was moving houses. This simple. And as I was listening to you, I got the message that it's probably because I wanted to slow down. My body wanted me to slow down, and it still does. So, but it was done at such an inconvenient time because I had a move to do. How do you combine when your body wants something and your circumstances do not allow for that?
Yes, it's tricky, and sometimes we have to be able to hold space for ourselves to experience what we're experiencing, and still be able to just pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and try and continue on, as long as there is an end in sight and we still get the message, because that's absolutely the key. Because if you continue to push, if that is the message that you needed to receive and you continue to go against it, you will get a louder one. So you want to try not to push it that hard, in the same way that if we continue to take the cold and flu medication and go to work and soldier on, at some point we will end up with a chest infection that's raging so much we'll have to go home and stay in bed, and nobody will want us at work, or we could end up with pneumonia or something worse. So we have to at some point listen and rest, otherwise we'll be forced to, by our body or by life circumstances. So it is a difficult situation, and I do recommend sitting and holding that space for yourself to experience fully the pain that you're in, to experience fully what you're going through. Allow yourself the emotional release that you need at that time. Allow your body to fully feel it, because so often we stifle and compress our feelings and our emotions. We don't allow them to expand fully as far as they need to, because we're worried we'll be consumed. And so and nobody wants to be consumed by pain. Pain is something we generally are primed to run from. And so we run. We do whatever we can to stifle it, squash it down, try not to think about it, just try and keep ourselves busy, keep on top of stuff. And that doesn't help the pain to go away, and it doesn't help us to heal. So if we allow ourselves to at least sit with it for some of the time, allow ourselves to expand into it, allow it to take up as much space as it needs in us, and allow ourselves to cry, release, whatever we have to do to allow it to move through. And then we start to shift our intention, and we start to shift our intention to holding deep love and compassion for ourselves, for that body part, for our journey, for all that we are doing, for all that we are holding. And we allow that to reprogram our anatomy from that point. It's a very powerful experience, and it very quickly decreases our symptoms. But it is very important for us to get that message. So I invite you to, do you mind if I ask you a few questions about your toe?
Oh, go ahead. We have to keep it short, because I also want to make sure I have time for your mini Akashic Records reading, because that's something I like to give.
About that.
Yeah, but I think that I just want to go with the flow. This is going to go over an hour. As long as you're happy with it, we'll go a little bit over, and not too much, but yeah. Go ask me some questions. I'm curious.
Okay. So it was your big toe, wasn't it?
No, it was the second one.
The second one.
On my left foot.
Oh, that's
on my
interesting.
left foot.
And you crushed the toenail, the whole bone segment?
I think it was maybe not broken, but it was definitely affected the bone, and it was right deep inside, just before the bone grows. And it was really deep. Like, I really felt it was crushed.
Oh, that sounds so painful.
It was so painful. I thought, oh, childbirth.
Gosh, it must have been bad.
Impart that sort of message. Not that I want to impart that sort of message, but and okay, go on, keep asking questions. Let's see where this takes us. That's really interesting.
So our toes are, so when it's our toes, we have to look at where we're out of balance in our lives as well, because our toes are there to balance us. So functionally, that's what our toes do. They allow us to balance and be able to keep a normal, regular, flowing walking gait. So what that means is keeping flow and balance in our lives. So I would invite you to question where you are out of, or where you were at that point, out of alignment with your flow, with your balance, and perhaps again, looking at that structure and that strength, and standing in your flow state. So not allowing yourself to become stagnant, but perhaps pushing too hard, perhaps aiming in a direction that felt out of flow, perhaps explore where you have been pushing in that way, in a way that is not serving your ability to serve on a much bigger level. So perhaps it would have been, it could have been business, it could have been life, but I feel that there is more around the balance than just the structure for that particular injury. That is more of where the magic is for you. That yes, you were given the opportunity to rest, but that's only the first part of the message. That there is more to it around your state of balance and your ability to feel calm, grounded, and balanced in what you're doing.
Yeah, balance between my family and my work life has always been big. Yeah, ever since I've had children. So and I know, not that I want to, share openly on this interview that's going to go on YouTube and everything, but I can see where there was a need for balance. Yeah, so that's really interesting. Okay, so shall we move on to your gift? Hopefully it will be a gift.
Yes, thank you.
I like to do so, like, really short. What you can have a question, or I can just go with whatever I'm being given. I'm going to say the opening prayer to opening the Akashic records. For those who don't know what it is, I've done a 1 hour video on it that you can find on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Ange de Lume. It's shortened ANGEDELUM. And it's really looking into the bigger picture and have a little peek of what's, you have such a big purpose though, Emma. They've been starting to show me long before when you were talking. It was like, yeah, okay, we're getting to this. Just wait, she's talking. So I'm going to say the prayer now. And so we acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and the courage to know the truth as it is revealed to us for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Oh, Holy Spirit of light, protect me from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to see Emma Turton in the light of her Akashic records, to see her in the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Emma have for her. The records are now open. So, do you have a specific question, or do you just want me to go with whatever I'm shown?
I'm happy for you to just go with whatever. It sounds interesting. I'm intrigued.
So I think I've said this to you almost roughly a year ago, but what I'm shown is your book and the incredible impact you're going to have globally. And I don't know if you've ever planned to be published by Hay House. I'm not sure if it's going to be your first publisher. It might be your second one, but and I don't know how far you're into your book, but I'm being shown the book about how you will teach people how to tune into their bodies, trust their bodies, a lot of what we've been discussing today. This is going to be massive, absolutely massive. And I don't know if you're prepared for that. And they want to tell you that it's absolutely fine. You only need to do one step at a time. You don't have to think of the whole planet in one go, especially being a clairsentient. That could be super overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But your work is going to have, an impact into the lives of millions of people. I'm saying millions.
Wow.
This really fills me with joy because you're the first person that I've come across, and I feel privileged that I've worked with you before. You're the first person I've come across that I've had a vision that big, that especially in the field of medical intuition, because you take the power back to the client. And for me, that's absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. And yes, maybe at one point children will be taught to be have their own medical intuitive, but what they're showing me is that they already know. What we just need to make sure is that we're out of the way, and that as adults we respect and empower them when they're saying things about their bodies instead of questioning it, and that we just show them how right they are, really. Because we dismiss many things that don't make sense to us, but if it makes sense to the child, they might not have the words yet or the understanding of what is happening, but they certainly know what is. So it's more us meeting them where they are rather than teaching them anything. That's what I'm being shown. And I think you will be actually instrumental into helping whatever school system's going to be open to it. I don't know if you'll come to my School of Light, because I know at one point I will be doing something like that. I have no idea when. I'm experimenting at the moment within my own homeschooling, which is why I have been asked to homeschool, actually, is to do this for my own children. And what they're saying is just you will be shown the way one step at a time. Don't think in a way, they almost not want you to think about the biggest picture, because that might actually give you palpitations.
Yeah.
And they say you can stay absolutely who you are. This will not change you. This will not interfere with your life. You can still be a mom. You can still have a balanced life. So please do not be afraid of this. However, bear in mind that this is what you've come to do, and it's going to be massive. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I love that.
Sorry?
I love that.
Do you have any questions about it, or how far are you in your book, in writing your book? If you're happy to share about it.
Yeah, I am happy to share about my book. I love my book, but it also isn't moving very fast in terms of writing. But because of I'm starting a new course that I'm running that begins in January, and because of the theme of that and the teaching that I'll be doing as a part of that, which is all about learning to become your own medical intuitive, to tune into your body and to teach people to do this as a group of people, and to really unpack each of the different parts of medical intuition we need to be able to access that framework ourselves, and how to go through those guiding questions to get to knowing what the message is for us. That will actually help me to finish off each of my chapters, because it's going to really divide it up, and I'll have a lot more I guess I'll have a lot more of a framework for the book and how it will work in terms of a teaching tool in a way. So, and it would be really good for the people who have already signed up to do my immersion, my 6-month immersion. It would be really good for them to actually have a copy of my book in their hand at some point within the next year. So I would love it to be finished, but yes, I'm not all that far through it. I've got, all of the different framework. I know all of the different topics. I've done a lot of different chapters. I've done some of the real meaty parts, and I've got lots of different stories and things in there, but it's just really getting it in all finished, which is the challenge. So, and of course I started a few other books along the way, so that didn't help.
No, they're asking you to focus on only one.
Okay.
And what they're suggesting, it's always an invitation, it's never a command, is that you focus on the one that is going to help people who don't necessarily want to become medical intuitive. So it's important that you choose the language so that people, it's, like Louise Hay wrote, You Can Heal Your Life. It's the same kind of concept, is that is the power is within you, the healing power is within you, or something like that. And that it's really your ideal reader is not someone who's at this stage I need to say necessarily wants to do medical intuition for others, but they just want to empower themselves. So that can help. And I don't know if that's already what you're doing with your book, but that's what I'm being shown. And but again, it's entirely up to you what you take up and what you do with the information that is offered to you. There's no prescription, no command.
And that makes sense. And that is sort of what I'm, because, as I said, I didn't even know what a medical intuitive was until a few years ago. So, and yet I was obviously already doing it and didn't really know what it meant. So, it is language that not everybody is aware of, even if it is something they are already doing. But what I find is the most powerful thing is when we do it for ourselves, because that's, what's the point unless we can actually benefit from it ourselves? Why we can't go giving it to other people if we can't be getting the benefits from it ourselves? It needs to be working, and that's absolutely where my book is aimed at, teaching people how to read themselves.
Brilliant. And what they're saying as well is that it's very important that people start with themselves, because there's a tendency to want to fix others before you fix yourself. So that's very important that you're very clear where you're taking people, so they're not using as an avoidance mechanism for their own journey. I'm going to close the records now, unless you have one more question about what they're saying about your
No, that's good. Thank you very much. That's really helpful.
I want to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the Lords of the Records for their point of view, and I would like to thank the Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Emma, it has been such a delight to have you on my show. I don't know if we're going to do this again, but I'm certainly going to carry this interview in my heart for a long time.
Oh,
Thank you.
likewise. Thank you. Thank you.
You will be going on YouTube, and eventually when I decide to launch my podcast officially, obviously you'll be, and then I'll let you know, and we'll put all the show notes and everything together. But feel free to post in the comments the link to your Facebook page so that people can find you. Then there's a link to this interview that goes on my pin post, so everybody, when they start watching the other episodes, will come across you, and then they'll have all the information that they need. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. I'm going to get on with my day.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for today. It was absolutely awesome. I don't know what I was terrified about.
Well, on this, every time we're afraid, there's always excitement behind it. So it's just true. Shifting the energy from fear to excitement and enthusiasm, which you've done beautifully. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ange.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.